In today's video, we'll be breaking down all of the gear John Mayer used for the John Mayer Trio setlist for the Crossroads Festival 2023. We will start off with the guitars, then the pedal board, and then finally finishing off with the amplifiers. Hope you enjoyed today's breakdown of all of the gear from the John Mayer Trio performance at Crossroads. Let's get right on into it. Alright, the guitars, and it was a pretty safe bet to assume that John would rely primarily on a Silver Sky for majority of the night, and that's exactly what we got from him. John brought out his matte black, almost charcoal frost metallic finished Silver Sky, and it appears to be the exact same one he used over a year ago for the Sawbrock tour. It even has that prototype Silver Sky sticker right below the bridge, and it's kind of cool that he brought this Silver Sky back out, because I think majority of people would have speculated and assumed that it would have been one of the mock sand ones that he'd been using lately on the solo tour and with Dead & Company. But no, we go back to what should be the exact same guitar we saw during the Sawbrock tour. And much like the John Mayer Trio performance for Love Rocks, we did see John bring out the Fender Monterey Stratocaster for Wait Till Tomorrow. Clearly that is set up in E flat to kind of do the Hendrix covers at this point, and instead of bringing out a different Silver Sky, John's still opting, at least as far as the trio is concerned, to bring out the Monterey Stratocaster for Wait Till Tomorrow, which was really awesome to still see at least one Strat get brought up, but though I was kind of hoping for a bit of a different song selection, honestly, and something a little bit more out there in terms of the set list and maybe not quite as safe as they performed it, and then that might have led to seeing some different guitar choices, not just the Silver Sky for 3 songs and then the Monterey Strat for 1, but all things considered, still really awesome to see that Monterey Stratocaster in the mix for the trio. Alright, so with both of the guitars covered, we of course now are going to move on to the pedal board. And on your screen right now are going to be shots of John's pedal board that I am also looking at. We're going to break them down together because we have to take a look at a few different angles to really piece together what he actually had on his pedal board for the trio set. We don't just have, unfortunately, a great shot of John's pedal board, so it's taken a few different angles to kind of piece together what exactly was on it for this performance. And at this point, we probably never will have just a beautiful dead-on shot of the pedal board. So let's break this pedal board down together using all of these different angles of it. We're going to start off with the very front row first and then move on to the back row. So front row, starting off, we have a TC Electronics Polytune 3. That is just John's go-to electric tuner at this point in time. Then we have a Keeley Katana version 1 for the clean boost. No surprises so far. Moving on next, we have a Ibanez TS10, and this is the first Ibanez TS10 on the pedal board. If you guys remember, for the solo tour's first leg, as well as the Love Rocks John Mayer Trio performance, John actually had started to switch up his overdrive section, and instead of sometimes having a TS10 going into the Klon Centaur or Klon Centaur going into the TS10, he would have one TS10 pre and post Klon Centaur, kind of allowing him to mix around with the different combinations and even stack all 3 of them together for his main lead tone. And it's kind of the same concept here for the trio performance at Crossroads, and I really think this is going to be John's kind of main gain stage section overdrive combination going forward. TS10 into Klon Centaur into TS10. However, on this pedal board, there is one thing that is different. You can actually make out the JHS pedals box it later, which is kind of a dumbleator in a box. Now, what exactly John had in that pedals loop, we don't quite know for sure because we just don't have a really great shot of the cabling on the pedal board, but that is in between the first TS10 and the Klon Centaur. And of course, as I already mentioned, following the Klon Centaur, we do have that last TS10. Really cool just seeing TS10, Klon Centaur into TS10 seemingly sticking around in a combination that John must clearly be liking. It's one that if eventually I get another TS10, I'm going to have to try out myself. Moving on now to the back row, we start off with the 29 pedals Una, a utility pedal that John is clearly just liking for its buffer feature as well as the different EQ options as well. This pedal's kind of been sticking around in the mix on various pedal boards of John's for the past 2 years about, and cool to see it be placed on this pedal board he used for Crossroads as well. Now, the very next pedal was what I initially thought was a Boss RE202 Space Echo, and once I saw that it was one of the bigger new kind of Boss style pedals with the 3 switches on it, and I immediately just assumed from the few shots we had at that point that it was the Space Echo. I was pretty much immediately going to go out and buy one because Chris Buck has been using one as well for Terra Firma, and man, it sounds absolutely incredible, and I really didn't need any more reason to go out and buy one. However, based on some new images that you are seeing right now of the knobs, it doesn't have the exact same knob layout as the Space Echo, indicating that it might be the DM101 delay machine instead of the Space Echo. That's really kind of all it could be. It looks like it has the knobs in a section of 3, then a single one in the middle, and then 3 more after that, which is the exact same layout as the DM101. So that is probably what that pedal is, and a very kind of oddball choice almost for John to use this pedal, because I think if you're obviously following John's gear and watching this video, probably expected the Providence Chrono delay to be placed on the pedal board for John's kind of longer delay with tap tempo. However, it's been kicked off by this pedal, and it'll be interesting to see if John actually switches to using some of these bigger Boss pedals going forward for his delay needs, maybe even trying out that Space Echo, who knows. Up next, we have the Way Huge Octopus Mark II, followed by that blacked out Boss CE2 that John's been using really ever since the Sawbrock era took off. And you can hear the modulation from the CE2 quite a lot during this Mayer Trio performance, which chorus and the John Mayer Trio is not something you really think of and he's ever used that much or really at all for the trio. However, you could hear it a lot, especially during the performance of They Love Each Other, that Grateful Dead cover. Okay, so now all that we have left to discuss is the amplifiers John used for the trio performance. And when it comes to his amplifiers, we knew that it was going to be John's usual 3 amplifier combination of a Fender amplifier, a Dumble amplifier, and then a 2-Rock amp as well. Of course, the 2-Rock being the best of both worlds of the Fender and Dumble sounds combined, in kind of John's words, paraphrasing there from his discussion on amplifiers in the past. So when it came to the Fender amplifier, it was just a guarantee that it was going to be John's 64 Fender Vibroverb. If you guys remember, I did a video kind of discussing the new John Mayer Trio gear just before this Crossroads performance and predicting what John would use. It was going to be a Fender Vibroverb, and of course that's exactly what he had used. However, one thing that is interesting when it comes to the Vibroverb is John has lately been miking that with an extension cab and it being an Alessandro cabinet. However, when it came to this performance, John actually opted for his Dumble 112 cabinet that actually has an EV speaker inside of it. So it was kind of, we thought that it was going to be an Alessandro cabinet that was going to be the extension for the Vibroverb, and then he ended up going with the Dumble cabinet instead, which is just a different choice that we didn't really expect John to use, but obviously sounded absolutely fantastic in the mixture this way. But for the solo tour, he still is using the Alessandro cabinet. We know that from the very first show that happened just before this Crossroads performance. And when it came to the 2-Rock combination, there were only really 2 options that John would use for this part of the amp rig. It was either going to be a John Mayer signature 2-Rock or his custom reverb signature version 1 number 83, and that is what John ended up using again for this performance, much like the Love Rock show. And just to restate, this amplifier is a true version 1 custom reverb signature. It's not a John Mayer 2-Rock prototype or anything like that. It is a true original custom reverb signature version 1, and he paired this with the 2-Rock cabinet, kind of the older school one that he's had all the way since the John Mayer Trio era, which is just really cool to see 2-Rock cabs as well, still kind of being included in the mix at this point. Alright, so it's at this point here I've saved the most interesting part really about John's whole rig for last here, and it is the Dumble section for the amplifiers. Now, at Love Rocks, John used Dumbleland Overdrive Special serial number 006, and that was a very strong indicator that was probably going to be the amplifier he'd use for the Crossroads performance as well, at least for the Dumble sound. However, you can't rule out John switching out Dumbles because he owns so many and they all sound so amazing and good in their own way. And for the Crossroads performance, John used Dumble Steel String Singer serial number 004. So, kind of to be expected, the Steel String Singers are what John uses the most often in terms of Dumble sounds throughout his amp history. However, there is one other shot we got when they were disassembling John's rig on stage in order to prepare for the next act, and as you guys can see from this image, Dumbleland Overdrive Special number 6 was actually behind the amp rig. Now, whether or not it was for a backup purposes or John was also using it in some fashion, who knows? But it's just really interesting that he had that amplifier with him for Crossroads as well, and it's what he used for Love Rocks' trio performance, but then elected to use Steel String Singer number 4 instead. Just something that I haven't really seen talked about a lot, and it's when we saw this shot, me and my friends, we were like, oh wow, he's actually got that amp off stage, kind of behind the amplifiers being used. So it would have been cool to kind of see even two Dumbles, both Steel String Singer 004 and then Dumbleland Overdrive Special number 6 together. That would have been pretty rad, and then maybe the 2-Rock Custom Reverb Signature in the middle. That would have been really cool to have seen a 3-amp setup that way, of course, though I do love the Vibroverb a lot, and it'd be sad to see that kind of get pushed to the wayside. Overall, I thought the trio performance was really awesome, and at this point, anytime we get a John Mayer trio show, we just have to be very grateful that we're still getting it, because the band really isn't a thing at this point. We got 2 shows this year, which was very special to see. Of course, it's not quite like 2017 when they were playing together every single night as part of the set list of the Search for Everything tour. And because they're not playing together that often, I think, in my opinion at least, that's really why the set list for this show was rather safe, in my opinion. You know, Gravity, Wait Till Tomorrow, Vultures, those 3 songs the trio still has down pat together, and they're kind of the 3 that they can really perform very easily without having to rehearse that much. Of course, Who Did You Think I Was, which they performed for Love Rocks, is another one that they know very well together and doesn't take that much rehearsing. But for me, the real highlight was They Love Each Other. That Grateful Dead song I thought blended very well into the trio, and John's guitar tone for that song especially was just beautiful. It sounded so incredible. And when I did the gear video discussing the current state of the John Mayer Trio rig kind of in the more modern day setting and predicting what John would use for Crossroads, I did have a lot of wishful thinking and thinking we'd get Crossroads, Try, Ain't No Sunshine When She's Gone, or Good Love Is On The Way. One of those songs maybe added into the mix just to change it up and get something, you know, really special for Crossroads, but with probably what time they all had with their schedules to rehearse for the show, that was kind of very unlikely, if just a guaranteed not to happen, although I still have hope one day we'll see some more of those songs kind of making return for future trio shows. Who knows? Maybe we'll get another thing like the 2017 tour where they actually used the trio as part of the set list for the whole night. That would be amazing. I love that so much. But that's kind of why, as well, the gear choices were what they were, with Wait Till Tomorrow using that Monterey Stratocaster and then the Silver Sky taking over everything else. John didn't really need to use a different guitar because the set list didn't really call for it at this point. So hopefully you guys enjoyed today's video and gear breakdown. Let me know your thoughts of the Crossroads performance with the trio as a whole. Did you like the tone? Did you like the gear choices? Were you hoping for anything else? Let me all know in the comments down below. And thank you guys so much for watching today's video. Take care, and we'll see you on the next one.
Anyway, go ahead and click the subscribe button if you like what you see.